Imagine doing everything society tells you to do.
Right.
You work the 60-hour weeks, you pay for the dates, you follow all the rules of chivalry.
Holding doors, sending flowers, all of that.
Exactly. You save your money meticulously for this shared future, and yet somehow you end up emotionally drained, financially gutted, and to top it all off, you are told that you are the problem.
Which is a heavy thing to hear.
It really is. But what if this isn't just a string of bad luck? I mean, what if it isn't you failing at relationships, but rather a highly engineered system working exactly as it was designed to?
It's a profound premise, honestly.
Yeah.
And it completely reframes the way a lot of men are experiencing the modern world right now.
Yeah.
It shifts that focus entirely from individual failure to the actual, well, the architecture of our social and legal systems.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are undertaking an extensive, unflinching review of a controversial and honestly explosive new ebook.
One that is currently setting the manosphere on fire.
Yeah, it really is. It's called Simp Slavery by Conrad Riker. We are going to explore the history of our institutions before they were captured, and we'll look at the raw mechanics of modern gender dynamics that Riker outlines.
It's a dense read.
Very. And before we get into this ultra-long, incisive, and fascinating exploration, I need you to hit the like and subscribe button right now.
Seriously, do it so you don't miss deep dives like this one.
And hey, if you want to read this book for yourself, and you probably will after this, you should check out Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books to buy it. And be sure to follow the author at Conrad Riker on Substack.
But before we begin actually analyzing the text, we do need to pause for a mandatory disclaimer.
Right, very important.
This book contains highly politically charged content. It touches on very sensitive themes regarding feminism, Marxism, and gender dynamics. So, as your guides today, we are absolutely not taking sides.
Not at all.
We are not endorsing the viewpoints presented in this content. Our mission is simply to impartially report, unpack, and analyze the arguments the author is making. That way, you can understand the ideas driving this growing movement. Our goal here is synthesis and understanding of the text provided.
Perfectly said. So just to give you a roadmap of where we are heading today, we will be examining the author's core concept of what he calls the simp economy.
Right.
From there, we will look at his claims regarding the illusion of modern dating and family courts. That's a big one.
Oh, absolutely.
Followed by an exploration of what he terms the myth of male expendability. We will also take a historical tour of Western and Eastern institutions before their modern iterations.
And finally, we'll detail the philosophical roadmap the book offers for male self-ownership.
So let's just jump right into it. The simp economy.
Yeah, so Riker's central premise hinges on this massive macroeconomic claim. He argues that men are the only lifetime net taxpayers in society.
While women, on average, function as net recipients of those tax dollars.
Exactly. And building on this, he takes the term simp.
Which, usually operates as internet street slang for a guy who is overly desperate for female attention.
Right. He takes that term and elevates it to a full sociological concept. He calls it a national condition where men are fundamentally programmed to serve, sacrifice, and ultimately disappear.
And the way he builds that argument relies really heavily on evolutionary psychology.
He does.
He uses this concept of the dual mating strategy to explain female behavior.
Right, so the book posits that women have evolved to seek out beta males for resources, provisioning, and long-term stability.
But at the same time, they are simultaneously seeking alpha males for genetic fitness and sexual novelty.
And Riker uses that specific evolutionary framework to explain modern marital statistics. He cites data from the National Center for Health Statistics showing that 68% of divorces in America are initiated by women.
68%.
Yeah. And rather than viewing this as a sign of modern emotional incompatibility or, just a glitch in the system, the author frames this as evolutionary programming operating perfectly.
In his view, this is just hypergamy in action.
Exactly. The assertion is that a woman will dissolve a marriage once she has secured financial stability and perceives a better genetic or social option.
And the financial toll he attributes to this biological drive is staggering. I mean, Riker points out that the average man saves $197,328 by age 45.
Operating under the assumption of a shared future.
Right. Nearly $200,000 of stored labor.
It's a massive amount of capital.
It is. And to ground these numbers, the book details this one story of a man in Austin, Texas.
Oh, the Austin story. That one is brutal.
It really is. According to the narrative, he did everything right by traditional standards. He paid off the house, raised 2 kids, attended church, had a seemingly stable home life.
The American dream, basically.
Yeah. But during a therapy session, his wife confessed she had only stayed for the financial security, and that her Orange Theory fitness trainer was what she, quote, really wanted.
Unbelievable.
And as a result of the subsequent divorce, this man lost his home, his daily access to his children, and now pays $4,200 a month in child support.
Because his wife, in the author's terminology, upgraded.
Right, upgraded.
And the author uses that specific anecdote to introduce a very clinical concept. He views that Austin man not as a betrayed partner, but as infrastructure.
Infrastructure, that is a rough word to use for a human being.
It's a brutal way to conceptualize human relationships, for sure. But the argument is that the husband served as the financial foundation upon which the wife could safely build a new life with a new partner.
Wow.
Riker asserts that biology gave the wife the dual mating imperative, and the modern state provides the legal mechanisms to execute it without consequence.
And he doubles down on this infrastructure idea with another case study. He describes a 34-year-old CPA in Denver.
Oh yeah, the CPA.
Right, so this man is working late nights to provide for his family, completely unaware that his wife is operating a highly lucrative, secret OnlyFans account out of their guest bedroom.
Under the pseudonym Stepmom Needs Tips.
Yeah. And she is generating $12,000 a month.
Tax-free, essentially, if she's hiding it.
Right. And when the husband finally discovers this and confronts her, she just dismisses him as unexciting. She files for divorce and then accuses him of emotional abuse to secure a favorable settlement.
And Riker uses the Denver CPA story to really illustrate his concept of a gynocentric system.
How so?
Well, he extrapolates from these individual events to argue that our legal and cultural frameworks shield women from accountability. In the author's analysis, the wife can secretly monetize her sexuality, detonate the marriage, and then utilize the legal system.
Specifically by weaponizing that really vague concept of emotional abuse.
Exactly. She uses it to secure her exit and financially penalize the husband. Riker's broader point is that the state acts as the ultimate enforcer of female hypergamy, ensuring the man continues to fund a contract that has already been broken.
So if the marriage market operates as the macroeconomy of this system, the book argues that modern dating serves as the microeconomy.
Right, the front lines.
Yeah. Riker directs intense criticism toward dating applications like Tinder, Bumble, and Hinge. He actually characterizes them as behavioral Skinner boxes.
And by using the term Skinner box, Riker is drawing a direct parallel to the operant conditioning chambers used in behavioral psychology.
Right. The ones with the rats and the levers.
Exactly. Those chambers rely on unpredictable, variable rewards to condition an animal into endlessly repeating an action.
And Riker asserts that dating algorithms are explicitly engineered to function the exact same way for men.
They keep male users endlessly swiping, spending money on premium features, and enduring rejection.
All while extracting their capital and attention through the false promise of intimacy.
And the data he presents to support this structural imbalance is quite stark.
It really is. He cites a 2021 study from MIT which found that men initiate 98% of conversations on dating apps.
98%.
Yeah. And he pairs that with a 2022 Stanford study showing that women swipe right 3.2 times more frequently on men than men do on women.
Wait, I think you have that backwards. The study shows women are much more selective. Women swipe right way less, meaning they are filtering intensely.
Ah, yes, you're right. Let me clarify what the book says. The book notes women are operating a high-frequency trading algorithm for status, where they can efficiently filter and discard vast numbers of men with minimal effort. They are the ones with the extreme selectivity.
Right. Those statistics form the basis of what Riker calls the reverse auction.
The reverse auction, that's a fascinating term.
It is. In a standard economic auction, multiple buyers bid on a single item, driving the price up, and the highest bidder wins the asset. But in the reverse auction of modern dating, the author argues that men are bidding their money, their time, and their dignity against one another for female validation.
And the female participant acts as the auctioneer collecting the bids.
Exactly. While the men function merely as liquidity providers, funding her lifestyle and inflating her ego.
And the book provides examples of men caught in this reverse auction, like this one guy in Seattle who lost $68,000 over an 18-month period.
That is a staggering amount of money for dating.
It is. But the striking detail here is that the woman he was seeing meticulously tracked every single gift and dinner in a spreadsheet.
A spreadsheet.
Yeah. Riker argues she wasn't doing this out of gratitude, but was clinically calculating her return on emotional manipulation.
Wow.
There's another account of a software developer in Austin who spent $18,000 over a year and a half taking 12 different women on dates. He paid the bill every single time.
And what happened?
Every single woman vanished immediately after the final dinner was paid for.
See, Riker synthesizes these behavioral patterns by equating modern chivalry to feudalism in reverse.
Feudalism in reverse.
Right. In historical feudalism, a serf provides labor to a lord in direct exchange for physical protection and access to land. It is a transactional, reciprocal relationship.
Okay, that makes sense.
But Riker argues that in modern dating, men are expected to serve women as overlords, paying for dinners, planning logistics, performing endless acts of service.
But with zero expectation of reciprocal return.
Exactly. He critiques the nice guy archetype, arguing that the man who constantly pays is not actually being generous. Instead, he is engaging in fear-based appeasement.
Fear-based appeasement.
Yes, he complies with a system designed to drain his resources because he is terrified of being socially ostracized or labeled as toxic.
Riker even points to minor social interactions to highlight this dynamic. He mentions a man who recounts being glared at in a coffee shop simply for not rushing to hold open an automatic door for a woman.
An automatic door.
Yeah. The author labels this expectation ritualized humiliation.
And if the dating algorithms and social expectations act as the bait for this system, Riker argues the lock on the trap is the state itself.
The state. Let's get into that.
Specifically, he directs his focus toward the family court system, which he views not as an arbiter of justice, but as an enforcement mechanism.
In the text, he explicitly describes family court as a debt collection agency run by women for women.
That is a heavy accusation.
It is, but the statistics he uses to back up this claim are heavy too. He references 2020 Pew research indicating that 72% of divorced men end up financially worse off post-divorce.
Experiencing an average wealth drop of 37%.
Right. And he also looks internationally. He notes that the UK's Child Maintenance Service collected £1.2 billion in 2023 from absent fathers.
1.2 billion.
Yeah. And the crucial data point he highlights is that 88% of those paying fathers had zero court-ordered access to their children.
88%.
They are legally mandated to provide financial liquidity, but are barred from actual fatherhood.
To illustrate the human cost of these statistics, the book details the case of a Canadian man named Darren.
Right, Darren.
Darren was a welder who consistently worked 60-hour weeks. After his wife initiated divorce proceedings and alleged emotional abuse, Darren lost his home.
He was denied access to his children, right?
Yes. And he was court-ordered to surrender 65% of his income in child support and alimony.
65%? How do you even live on that?
You don't. Unable to sustain the financial and emotional pressure, Darren took his own life 6 months later.
That is just tragic.
It is. But Riker does not frame this as an anomaly or a tragic mistake by a single judge. He frames it as the intended outcome of a system engineered to treat men as disposable assets.
And when Riker traces the ideological roots of how the courts became this way, he points directly to Marxist and feminist theory. He argues these ideologies have systematically captured legal institutions over the last few decades.
He focuses heavily on the work of legal scholar Catherine McKinnon.
Okay, tell me about her.
McKinnon is famous for the framework that abuse is sex inequality made flesh.
Abuse is sex inequality made flesh.
Right. Riker argues that this specific ideological framework is used by the courts to pathologize standard male behavior. If we look at how Riker maps Marxist theory onto gender relations, it becomes clear.
How so?
Classical Marxism views society through the lens of class struggle and capital. The author argues that modern feminism simply replaced capital with sex and class struggle with marriage.
So under that framework, if a man comes home exhausted after a 60-hour shift at a welding shop, and he's just quiet or withdrawn, he is no longer just tired.
Exactly.
Through this ideological lens, his fatigue is framed as oppression, and his withdrawal is classified as emotional abuse against his wife.
Precisely. Riker points to the concept of emotional labor as a Marxist feminist Trojan horse.
A Trojan horse.
Yes. By framing emotional availability as a form of labor, a relationship is transformed into a continuous emotional audit where the man is perpetually in debt.
That sounds exhausting.
The book extrapolates on the chilling consequences of this by citing a recent legal precedent. A Canadian man was sued for $15,000 for emotional damages.
For what?
Simply for telling his ex-partner that he did not want to have children with her.
You can be sued for that.
Well, while the court ultimately dismissed the suit, Riker argues the fact that it could even be filed signals a dangerous new legal frontier.
And the cultural acceptance of this idea is something he explores as well. Riker points to a viral TikTok trend where women send Venmo requests to their ex-boyfriends for emotional recovery following a breakup.
Emotional recovery.
Yeah, it literally involves charging a man thousands of dollars for therapy because he chose to end the relationship.
That is wild.
The author asserts that we are entering an era where male indifference is effectively being criminalized. A man is no longer permitted to be tired, busy, or simply uninterested.
If he withdraws his attention, society dictates that he owes a financial debt.
Which leads directly into Riker's next major argument, what he calls the myth of male expendability. He asserts that the foundational silent assumption of modern society is that male lives are inherently disposable.
Particularly when compared to female feelings and safety.
Right. And Riker draws a very stark contrast here. He uses the sinking of the Titanic as a historical anchor. Over 1,500 people died, and 700 men intentionally stayed behind on the sinking ship so that women and children could board the limited lifeboats.
And culturally, we have always labeled that act as the pinnacle of chivalry and heroism.
Right, but Riker rejects that framing entirely. He categorizes it as systemic male disposability.
And he brings this concept right into the modern era by pointing to data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Men overwhelmingly dominate the most dangerous high-risk professions.
Mining, logging, deep-sea fishing.
High-altitude construction, exactly. And Riker questions why this statistical reality is rarely discussed in conversations about workplace equality.
His conclusion is that society fundamentally expects men to assume physical risk, endure bodily destruction, and die quietly to maintain the infrastructure of civilization.
The most glaring institutional example he provides is the United States draft. Registration for selected service applies exclusively to men.
Right.
If a young man refuses to register for potential military conscription, he faces severe penalties. The loss of access to federal employment, student loans, and job training programs.
Riker points out that it is literal conscription by gender enforced under the threat of financial ruin. Yet he notes there are no prominent feminist organizations protesting this specific lack of equality. They are not demanding parity in combat casualties.
Which leads Riker to argue that our culture explicitly incentivizes and rewards male martyrdom.
He traces this through religious history, right?
Yes, pointing to the sacrifice of Christ as the ultimate male martyr archetype, and also through philosophical traditions like Stoicism. The cultural narrative conditions men from birth to suppress their own physical and emotional needs, endure pain, and sacrifice themselves for a society that, according to the author, offers them nothing in return but a commemorative plaque.
So Riker is basically challenging his readers to actively stop accepting martyrdom as a virtuous life path.
Precisely.
So after establishing this vast matrix of exploitation where dating is a financial trap, family court is an extraction engine, and society views men as disposable, the book completely pivots.
Right, he looks for a way out.
Yeah. Riker looks backwards into history to find a blueprint for how men can reclaim their autonomy. He argues that before Western and Eastern institutions were captured by modern ideologies, they operated on entirely different principles.
The author posits a grand historical theory here. Every enduring empire and civilization in human history was constructed by men who prioritized masculine brotherhood, strict discipline, and objective truth over the pursuit of female validation.
And he takes the reader on an extensive historical tour to validate this claim, right?
He does, beginning in ancient Sparta. In the Spartan system, male children were separated from their mothers at age 7 and integrated into the Syssitia.
The communal mess halls.
Exactly, where they lived until the age of 30. Riker emphasizes that this brotherhood was forged through shared physical pain, rigorous military discipline, and mutual hardship.
A stark contrast to modern methods of processing emotion through therapy or journaling.
Absolutely. And moving from Greece to ancient Rome, Riker examines the concept of the paterfamilias.
This was the male head of the household who wielded absolute legal authority over his family and estate.
Right, and while Riker acknowledges this sounds draconian to modern sensibilities, he argues it was a necessary structure that recognized civilization's dependence on male authority and accountability.
He actually cites the historical figure Cato the Younger, right?
Yes, Cato, a prominent Roman statesman renowned for his stoicism. Cato divorced his wife not because of infidelity, but simply because he determined her character lacked virtue,
And Riker points out that Cato did not debate the issue or engage in mediation. He simply exercised his authority and walked away.
Another crucial Roman institution Riker highlights is the collegia. These were ancient trade fraternities composed of blacksmiths, stonemasons, and soldiers.
They functioned as vital networks of mutual aid.
Exactly, providing burial funds, professional training, and financial support for their members. Riker emphasizes that these organizations operated entirely on principles of honor and mutual contribution, completely devoid of the state-enforced wealth redistribution or victimhood narratives he attributes to modern Marxist ideologies.
But Riker doesn't limit his historical analysis to just the West. He also explores feudal Japan and traditional Chinese philosophy.
He highlights the samurai class and their adherence to Bushido, a martial code that demanded absolute mastery over one's emotions.
He points to Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary Ronin who fought 60 duels undefeated.
And Musashi wrote his seminal work, The Book of Five Rings, in complete isolation in a cave.
Right. Riker uses Musashi to illustrate a man who achieved historical greatness precisely because he did not waste his life seeking validation in a domestic sphere or pleading his case in a family court.
He also references the Confucian condemnation of the Xiaosheng.
The Xiaosheng, what does that translate to?
It translates roughly to the little man, or the base man, in traditional Chinese thought. Within Confucian ethics, this described a man who lacked self-mastery and groveled for female attention or superficial pleasures.
So a simp, basically.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Such a man was actively mocked and excluded from scholarly and philosophical circles. True strength was measured by a man's ability to control his base desires, not by his willingness to sacrifice his dignity for female approval.
And Riker argues that modern culture has completely inverted this ancient hierarchy, elevating and celebrating the simp through social media algorithms while demonizing traditional stoicism.
To really hammer this point home, Riker rapid fires a list of historical titans who achieved greatness through isolation and a rejection of societal consensus.
He mentions Admiral Yi Sun-sin of Korea, right? A naval genius who won 23 consecutive battles against the Japanese fleet.
Yes, the admiral's meticulously preserved war diary details fleet formations, logistics, and strict discipline. But notably, it never mentions a woman.
He also brings up Diogenes the Cynic, the ancient Greek philosopher who chose to live in a ceramic wine barrel in the marketplace.
And when Alexander the Great approached Diogenes and offered him any boon he desired, Diogenes simply asked the most powerful man in the world to step aside because he was blocking the sunlight.
Riker holds this up as the ultimate manifestation of autarkia, or complete philosophical self-sufficiency.
He adds figures like Leonardo da Vinci, dissecting corpses in secret to master anatomy, and Galileo, pursuing heliocentrism under threat of house arrest.
They achieved immortality by focusing obsessively on their work and truth, completely ignoring social drama and the demands of the crowd.
Riker utilizes these historical examples to formulate a macro-level theory regarding the collapse of empires.
Okay, lay that out for us.
He draws a direct causal line from the fall of the Roman Empire, which he attributes to cultural decadence, effeminacy, and the erosion of martial virtue, to the modern decline of fraternal organizations.
He uses the Freemasons as his primary case study, doesn't he?
He does. For centuries, Masonic lodges maintained strict moral rigor through secrecy, ritual, and mutual accountability among men.
Today, however, Riker argues that the forces of liberalism and gynocentrism have hollowed out these institutions.
He describes modern lodges not as sacred brotherhoods forging men of character, but merely as tax-exempt social clubs for retirees.
The outward rituals remain, but the foundational fire and purpose have been extinguished.
Exactly.
So after building this massive architecture of biological, legal, and historical arguments, we finally arrive at the book's final act.
The solution.
Right. What is the actual antidote? What does Riker prescribe for the men reading this book who feel trapped in the systems he has described?
Well, Riker's solution is really notable for what it lacks. He does not advocate for violent rage, political lobbying, or attempting to negotiate with or change female nature.
So what is it?
His solution is absolute, calculated withdrawal. He terms this the power of no.
The power of no.
It is a philosophical and practical mandate to step completely out of the simp economy.
To build the foundation for this withdrawal, Riker dives into some heavy European philosophy.
He relies significantly on the work of Friedrich Nietzsche. Specifically, he utilizes Nietzsche's concept of the last man.
The last man.
The last man is described as a soft, herd-oriented creature whose primary goals are comfort, safety, and societal approval.
And Riker argues that modern simps are essentially last men in training.
Exactly. They have outsourced their internal nervous systems, their self-worth, and their emotional stability to either a woman's fluctuating mood or the validation of a social media algorithm.
And the antidote to the last man in Nietzschean terms is the will to power.
Right. But Riker is careful to clarify that in this context, the will to power is not about dominating others or subjugating women. Rather, it is about achieving absolute, uncompromising mastery over oneself.
He pairs Nietzsche with Arthur Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer famously observed that the greatest affliction of man is his inability to sit quietly in a room alone.
And Riker leverages this quote to advocate for the rigorous mastery of solitude. His argument is that if a man cannot tolerate his own company, he will inevitably become a slave to whoever is willing to provide him with interaction.
The fear of loneliness is the primary leverage the simp economy uses to extract resources.
Exactly. And Riker backs up this philosophical stance with modern sociological data. He points to a 2023 Stanford study which revealed that men who maintain 3 or more close male friendships earn 22% more in their careers.
And exhibit a 40% lower baseline level of the stress hormone cortisol.
Riker uses this to prove that cultivating male-only spaces and genuine brotherhood is not merely a philosophical ideal, but a biological and economic imperative.
The book provides a practical example of this philosophy in action through the story of a Silicon Valley engineer.
Oh, this story is fascinating.
It is. This man decided to completely restructure his life according to these principles. He replaced dopamine-heavy activities like binge-watching Netflix with cold plunges and rigorous physical training.
And more importantly, he made the deliberate decision to stop financing his girlfriend's lifestyle, cutting off his payments for her spa days and therapy sessions.
By eliminating that massive financial and emotional drain from his life, he reports that his professional productivity doubled and his mental clarity returned.
This culmination of philosophy and practical application leads directly to Riker's final blueprint. He lays out a set of uncompromising rules for men attempting to navigate the modern world while retaining their sovereignty.
And the blueprint is highly specific. First, he advises men to absolutely refuse marriage under current family law statutes.
If a man feels compelled to marry, Riker dictates that he must utilize ironclad prenuptial agreements, though he remains skeptical of their enforceability in modern courts.
Second, men must cultivate the ability to walk away from any dysfunctional system or emotional vampire at the first sign of disrespect.
Third, he commands men to stop paying for dates entirely unless the woman explicitly offers to split the bill, thereby withdrawing male financial liquidity from the dating market.
Fourth, men must prioritize building all male communities centered around shared purpose and mutual improvement.
And finally, he urges his readers to intensely study the trivium,
The classical education model comprising logic, rhetoric, and grammar.
The inclusion of the trivium is perhaps his most strategic advice. Riker argues that the reason Marxist and critical theorists have been able to capture Western institutions is because they mastered language and framing.
He insists that men must reclaim these intellectual tools. As Riker states in the text, language is power, and those who control it control thought.
By mastering logic and rhetoric, men can dismantle the narratives used to extract their resources.
Taking a step back, the sheer density of the arguments presented in Simp Slavery is substantial. We have journeyed through evolutionary biology, brutal modern anecdotes, the legal architecture of family courts, the philosophy of Nietzsche, and the historical precedents of ancient empires.
It is a massive intellectual architecture. And while the arguments Riker constructs are undeniably polarizing and deeply confrontational to modern sensibilities, understanding the mechanics of how he builds this worldview is critical.
It really is.
This book represents a crystallization of ideas that are gaining massive traction within the manosphere and broader cultural discourse right now. Recognizing the historical and legal frameworks these men are utilizing is vital for understanding this cultural shift.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought to consider based on the trajectory of Riker's arguments.
Go ahead.
If his ultimate prescription for men is total withdrawal, the creation of independent economies, and the collective refusal to participate in the current societal structure, what does the logical conclusion of that look like in the future?
It leads to a fascinating and disruptive thought experiment. If Riker's movement scales significantly, we might witness the rise of what could be termed digital decentralized colleges.
Digital collegiate.
Imagine vast networks of men operating entirely outside the traditional system, utilizing cryptocurrency, untraceable digital assets, and parallel arbitration frameworks to settle disputes.
So, if a critical mass of men completely opts out of the state tax apparatus, marriage contracts, and family court systems, the ultimate battleground of gender dynamics will shift.
It won't be fought in divorce courts. It'll be a total economic and social secession from the traditional state architecture.
Total secession. That is a profound implication to leave on. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to remind you one more time to hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss an analysis like this.
Seriously, subscribe.
If you want to read this explosive book for yourself and dive into the raw text of the arguments we explored today, you need to check out Simp Slavery by Conrad Riker on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
And be sure to follow the author at Conrad and Riker on Substack to keep up with his latest essays and writings.
Thanks for joining us, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.